What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Tate Talk Sports Podcast, here with another video. And today I'm going to be doing a big sports update, just kind of on all the things that have happened since the last time I made a video. Just a quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. Obviously, I'm going to talk about the Euros final and the unfortunate ending to the Euros. Not unfortunate, but unfortunate for me and the rest of England fans. Talk a little bit about the Premier League and how that is getting started in the next coming weeks and months. And then, of course, a look at the NBA Finals, which have recently been heating up. So stick around for that. So first things first, England lost to Italy in the Euro final on penalties. Now, what I will say before I say anything, from a neutral point of view, this was probably an amazing Euro to watch as far as how it ended. It wasn't the most crazy entertaining regular time, but what more can you ask for than penalties in a European final? So probably a great view from the neutral point of view. From an England point of view, it was probably the worst case scenario. Before I get into England, Italy had a great tournament and definitely deserved to win the tournament. I'm not going to say they deserve to win the final because I don't believe they did. I think it was very even. If not, England should have done more to win. They just didn't. They won on penalties, which is good for them. But they definitely deserve to win the tournament. They played so good the whole time, unbeaten since 2018. Now Italy's national team is. So, they look good as a team. Obviously, they just won the Euros. Now, getting into England, and the first thing I want to say before I say anything else is the lads deserve respect and praise and not hate. Specifically, Sancho, Saka, and Rashford, the guys who missed the penalty, who are receiving lots of abuse online because of that, and has basically sparked a whole movement around supporting them. So I just want to say that these guys gave everything they had, and even the guys like Rashford and Sancho, who maybe didn't play as much as they wanted to, they still came in and took a penalty in one of the most pressure situations that you can never imagine. So they definitely deserve respect and praise for the time that they and good times that they've given all the England fans and basically people in England just in general. So I just wanted to get that. I just wanted to say that before I get into a bit of what I think England is looking like in the future and maybe what they should have done in this final. So first things first, in the final, I think Southgate ended up playing it too defensive. Now, I don't mean he played it too defensive by playing a five at the back, because that is what he did play. His five at the back, and we saw this against Germany, is a fairly offensive one in comparison to other fives that are a bit more park the bus, sit at the back, and take on pressure. That's what it became. But if you watch the beginning of the match when they scored within the first 2 minutes, what his five back does is the wing backs that are on the five fly forwards and are pressing forwards almost the entire time. And it's causing overlapping runs and inverted runs, and people are getting open, and it creates a lot of offense, a lot more offense than a sitting five does. So I wasn't mad about the five from the start. A lot of people were, you want to see more offensive players in, and I wouldn't have mind seeing a four, but I wasn't mad about the five because we saw what it did to Germany. The problem is there's a problem and a really good thing in the fact that they scored within 2 minutes. They scored within 2 minutes. You've got a 1-0 lead. You can relax. That's massive. You've got the 1-0 lead. Now you continue to put pressure. You can sit back a little bit, but you continue to put pressure. But the problem with what happened to England was, for the first next 15, 20 minutes after that goal, they looked really good. They were pressing. They were escaping the press. They were going forward. But then after that, they just slowly sat farther and farther back. And it's because they had that goal and something to grab onto. And I'm not saying it's necessarily Southgate that told them to sit in their box, because I don't think it was. Southgate probably told them to be conservative, but the players just, subconsciously, when you've got that goal, you're sitting back. You just sit back ever so more. And we saw how horrible it was for their possession, about 70% to 30% possession for England and Italy. And it just ended up being too defensive. But what I'll say is it really could and should have worked. The wingers were tracking back and being amazing defensively in that first half. But if you watch the second half, the wingers, specifically Sterling, started to get tired and weren't tracking those runs. And what should have happened at that point is that's when you put in a Saka, that's when you put in a Sancho or Grealish or Rashford, all these guys that he has on the bench, you put in the fresh legs and they can continue that system and even add more offensively. And I personally, even though it was defensive and it might have ended up being a boring second half, I think it would have worked. But the problem was the guys were tired and they couldn't keep the offensive guys were tired and couldn't keep tracking back and marking the runs, which was making Italy very difficult to attack. Obviously, the other downside to sitting back like that is England doesn't look good in attack, and they really didn't look good after the first half in attack almost ever. There was a period towards the end of extra time and normal time where they were holding possession in the other third, but just never looked deadly for whatever reason. My guess is because they just had no real chances to get warm besides that first 20 minutes of the match. So what is the solution? Obviously, for me, the solution would have been bringing guys in. Bringing subs in off of one of the best benches, probably the best bench in the entire Euros tournament. Southgate had a real, negligence as far as putting guys in, and it seemed like he just didn't want to put guys in, which is weird, especially when your bench is so strong. You look at teams like Italy, and they were making a triple substitution, bringing fresh guys in, seemingly the whole second half. And England brought in Saka, I want to say around the 75th minute mark. That's one sub in the entire regular time. And you get 5 total, or even 6, but I believe it's 5. And then he didn't bring in Jack Grealish until the 100th minute of added extra time. And why wait so long to put in these weapons? You see the offense is stagnant. He needed to bring guys in. He just needed to change things up. His problem has become his system works, and he doesn't want the system to be disrupted. But the problem is this: in order to keep his system working, he needed to bring guys in, keep them fresh. So that's one thing. He needs to sub more with one of the best benches in the world. Players like Rashford. Let's just talk about Rashford. Rashford would be a stud on almost any other team, and they would be begging for him to be in that starting lineup. Even Italy, they'd probably want him in that starting front three. But for us, he's on the bench, not even playing a minute. I don't think it should be that way. I think he should either start or come in. But Southgate just has to learn to sub. The second thing is, in the future, Southgate is going to need to learn to switch to attacking formations and strategies, or at least more attacking, because we saw against Denmark and against Italy, when they switched to a back four, that England's back four can hold their own. They did not concede a goal from open play ever in the tournament, but they also didn't in a back four. The only times they conceded were off a corner and a free kick in a back four. They still didn't concede when they were in the back four from open play. And that just shows how strong that back line is. It may not be the strongest, but it's strong. And when you have a strong back line, that allows you to play the forward players. And he needs to feel comfortable doing that, because especially in the future, England is going to have some of the best attackers in the world, with the likes of Phil Foden, Rashford, Sancho, Saka, Mason Mount, Jack Grealish. All these guys are still in their early 20s, especially guys like Rashford and Sancho and Saka and Foden. They're all 20, 22, 21, 23. They're all so young, about 5 years off their prime. So he's going to need to learn how to be attacking, because we're going to play to our strengths. And we see all these teams playing to their strengths, but we weren't this year. And he needs to change that. He needs to feel comfortable with that back line and know that we can score goals. And I think in order to do that, he's just too afraid to concede right now. And it's just a big thing, but I think he's going to learn from this tournament, learn that he's going to need to make subs, and learn that he needs to play more attacking. And I think some guys are going to force his hand to do that when they slowly become better over this coming year and coming years. So that's really my main points about England in the final. Just once again, before I move on, the lads gave everything. They gave everything for England to cheer for and remember. I know this has been one of the most amazing sports viewing experiences of my life, watching England win these Euros and the passion that goes into it. It's been amazing. And they deserve nothing but praise, because they were chosen to take those penalties, and they had the courage to take those penalties. And sure, they didn't go in, but it's life. It happens. You gotta give them the praise that they deserve for making this England team so wonderful, and such a wonderful month and a half for everyone to watch. So now I'm going to move into the Premier League just real quick because it is starting soon within the next month and coming weeks. And if you were watching the Euros and are now interested in maybe some new football, then I would recommend the Premier League because it's probably going to be the best for you to watch and the best for you to understand. And in case you didn't know, the Premier League is the England's football league. That's not just England's players, but the league is based in England. So just a quick overview of the season coming up. I think the favorites to win the league are definitely Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, and Chelsea. There's probably some other guys that I'm not mentioning, but those to me are the top four who have the best chance to win the league. And all teams are still looking to make moves in the transfer market. Manchester City is still trying to make a move for Jack Grealish or Harry Kane, one of the two. If I were them, I would go for Kane. I think he fits their passing and scoring system better. Manchester United are looking for Rafael Varane, a center back from Real Madrid, still trying to buy him, have been for the few months. And they're also looking at Trippier, who is apparently, quote unquote, desperate to come back to the Premier League. Liverpool is still looking for a midfielder to replace Gini Wijnaldum, who was a midfielder that left them this summer to leave to Paris Saint-Germain. And the guys they're looking at are the likes of Renato Sanchez of Portugal, Saul of Atletico Madrid, and Youri Tielemans, a Belgian midfielder from Leicester, who all of those guys sound really good. Personally, if I had my choice, they would get Renato Sanchez. But we'll see what they do. And even if they do anything, Klopp has been noted as saying recently that he wants his bench players, that guys like Keita and Shaqiri and guys like that, to show that they don't need to spend a lot of money, that they've already got the talent. So maybe he'll prove everyone wrong. I still think they should buy one of these midfielders. Yeah. And then last team is Chelsea. They're looking for a number 9 because they had some goal scoring issues last year. They were able to stop everyone, but weren't necessarily able to score all the time. And they're specifically looking for Erling Haaland, which besides Mbappe is probably the most valuable young guy in the world in Germany. And so they're looking for him. If they manage to pull him off, they probably, to me, become the favorite to win the Premier League just because of how good Haaland is and how good he's already played under Thomas Tuchel, Chelsea's manager. I just think it will work out really well for them and they would become the favorites to me. So that's really it for a quick preview of the Premier League. Before I go, I'm now going to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals, which the series was tied at 2-2 last night with the Bucks winning Game 4. I'm going to say that the Bucks are starting to show how they're stronger than the Suns. And I don't mean the Suns are bad or the Bucks are necessarily better than the Suns, but I just think they're showing how they're stronger. And what I mean by that is specifically last night in Game 2, the Bucks had a horrible first quarter and most of the second quarter. As far as shooting threes goes, and just in general looking very stagnant. And whereas the Suns, they didn't have their best game, but Booker was going off. He was scoring all the time. Chris Paul was playing well. Crowder was hitting threes. Cam Johnson was hitting threes. They weren't playing their best, but they were playing really, really good. And despite that, they were tied at halftime. And I just think, but the Bucks on paper should win this series. Definitely. If you asked, especially at the beginning of the playoffs, you would have taken Bucks all day, just on paper. And they're starting to show how they are that bit stronger in superstar power with Chris Middleton and Giannis. But that being said, this is still a really good series with these guys being super evenly matched. And last night's game coming down to the last few possessions and Giannis getting a crazy block. It's just becoming a really, really, really exciting series. And just a few notes that I noted from last night's game that I want to talk about because they bothered me. One is Devin Booker was protected from fouling out by the refs. If you watch last night's game, Booker was in foul trouble for a lot of it. He had 5 fouls. Towards the end of the game, he was put in, and Jrue Holiday had basically a fast break layup. Devin Booker was back. When you have 5 fouls and you're a superstar, usually you hang back, you give up the layup, and you go and you try and score on the other end. Devin Booker went up and basically straight fouled Jrue Holiday. And he had his hand on the ball over the top, but he was grabbing him from behind with his other arm. He was hitting arm when he was grabbing the ball. It was a foul. basically any day in the regular season, that's a foul. And most days in the playoffs, it's a foul. Almost every day in the playoffs, it's a foul, but it wasn't called a foul. Now, I don't want to say they were, it was rigged or anything. I think that's a step too far. I think the refs were protecting Booker. And if it's, a reach in on a dribble, I get them not calling it, or maybe an offensive foul that he could have gotten an offensive foul and they don't call it. It's whatever. But this was a very, very blatant foul. And the commentators were saying it. And everyone was surprised that it didn't get called a foul and he would have fouled out. It was a bad play by him and he got bailed out. It is what it is. The Bucks ended up winning anyway, but I just wanted to mention it, that it was a really confusing thing that happened. And the last point I want to make is that flopping is becoming ridiculous. And specifically, I want to look at Jay Crowder. Just one play of Jay Crowder, not necessarily Jay Crowder as a player in total, but just one play from Crowder last night. And it was a play where Pat Connaughton was guarding him on an inbound, and he started to run towards the ball. And Pat Connaughton, this is a totally normal play, happens every single second of every single play in the NBA on defense, puts his arm out and just touches him. He doesn't do this. He just touches him to feel him. And that's basically standard defense across the league all day, every day. He does that. And then Jay Crowder goes and flops this way and basically stumbles all the way to the other end of the court and gets a foul call on Pat Connaughton. I mean, I've seen flops before, but that might be the worst I've ever seen. And it leads me to this, what I've been seeing all throughout these playoffs and in these finals as well from every single team. I'm not focusing on the Suns. I'm talking about every single team. Is flopping is just becoming awful. And it's just annoying to see these guys flopping. And then what specifically is coming from the flopping is clear fouls or non-fouls being complained about as if they definitely happened. Like when Devin Booker last night, I know I'm focusing on the Sun again. Again, I'm not emphasizing that it's just the Suns. It's just what comes to my mind. Devin Booker is guarding Giannis or Chris Middleton on a drive, and he hooks his arm, hooks it, and then lets go as he's going up for the shot, gets a foul called on him, and then complains like he was on the other side of the floor, is yelling and asking for a challenge and arguing with the ref. And this happens all the time. Every single time there's a call. When it's that obvious and that that they're going to see it in replay, why do they complain like that? I know I'm being petty, but it's becoming really annoying to me that these fouls are getting called like this. It's becoming like soccer. But I just had to get that off my chest. But if you haven't been watching the series, I really recommend you do. It's getting good. It's 2-2. It's going to be back and forth for the rest of the series, and I really recommend you guys watch. So thank you guys for watching this video. This has been a little sports update to catch you up on what's been going on since the last time I made a video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other video ideas you want me to do, please let me know in the comments, and I will be sure to check them out. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.